لا بأي حقوق تتقدم على حق الدولة في قرارات السلم والحرب.
Good afternoon on this Thursday, February 19th. I'm Nima Naufa. You're watching Future TV. These are today's headlines. The Patriotic Movement leader MP Michel Aoun holds talks with the Future Movement chief, former Prime Minister Saad Hariri, in the first public meeting between the two leaders in 5 years. An activist group says rebels in Syria captured 32 soldiers and pro-government gunmen near the northern city of Aleppo, where fighting is raging on. And the U.S. president calls on Muslims around the world to fight the misconception that groups like ISIS speak for them. Free Patriotic Movement leader MP Michel Aoun held talks last evening with Future Movement chief, former Prime Minister Saad Hariri, at the Center House in downtown Beirut, in the first public meeting between the two leaders since at least 5 years. Aoun was accompanied by his son-in-law, Foreign Minister Gebran Bassil. For its part, Hariri's press office said the talks were also attended by the former PM's advisor for MP Ghattas Khouri. The discussions tackled the general political situation in the country and the latest regional ones. The meeting comes after Bassil attended on Saturday a rally commemorating the 10th anniversary of the assassination of Hariri's father, former Prime Minister Rafi Hariri. Snow began to fall in mountainous regions across the country, blocking roads and isolating villages in the third storm to hit the country this year alone. Snowstorm Windy, as it's called, is accompanied by strong winds, heavy rains and snowfall starting from an altitude of 800 meters. Mountain roads in north of the country's Akkar district were blocked by snow and were accessible only by four-wheel drive cars and vehicles equipped with snow chains. The meteorological department at Beirut's Rafi Hariri International Airport forecast snowfall at 900 meters above sea level and winds at a speed of 80 to 90 kilometers per hour. The Damascus Highway, which connects the country's eastern Bekaa Valley with Beirut, was closed briefly in Dahr al-Baydar after several cars had skidded as a result of the frost. Municipality workers and civil defense struggled to reopen the vital road, making it accessible only to vehicles with no chains. Lebanon is regularly ranked one of the most corrupt countries in the world, but one minister is breaking taboos with an unprecedented campaign targeting everything from spoiled food to bribery. We're of course talking about Health Minister Walid Abu Faoud. From rat-infested grain silos to rotten meat for sale in supermarkets, barely a day has passed in the last 4 months without news of a horror story uncovered by our Health Minister Wael Abu Faoud. The campaign he has made, a politician and media star, with live coverage of press conferences at which he names and shames restaurants, supermarkets and suppliers accused of breaching health and safety standards. His inspections have forced the closure of butcheries, the seizure of expired goods, and even the arrests of several businessmen. They have captivated and divided public opinion in a country ranked last year as the 39th most corrupt in the world by Transparency International. Critics say he defames his targets, but he has also been dubbed the Minister of Lebanon by very grateful supporters. An activist group says rebels in Syria have captured 32 soldiers and pro-government gunmen near the northern city of Aleppo, where fighting is raging on as the two sides try to expand territory under their control. The Britain-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights and Aleppo-based activist Ahmed Hamid says the troops were seized in the village of Ratian after it was retaken by the rebels on Wednesday. The observatory says rebels also recaptured the village of Haddatnain on Thursday, 2 days after it was taken by government forces. The observatory and Hamid say intense clashes are taking outside a third village, Bashkoy, which was also taken by government 2 days ago. The fighting comes as UN envoy Staffan de Mistura is trying to broker a truce for the war-ravaged Aleppo, Syria's largest city. U.S. President Barack Obama is calling on Muslims around the world to fight the misconception that groups like ISIS speak for them. In his most direct remarks yet about any link between Islam and violent extremist attacks, Barack Obama said that we will ultimately prevail against militant threats. For weeks, the White House has sidestepped the question of whether the deadly attacks in Paris and other Western cities amount to Islamic extremism, wary of offending a major world religion.
We face genuine challenges to our security today, just as we have throughout our history. Challenges to our security are not new. They didn't happen yesterday. or a week ago or a year ago. We've always faced challenges. One of those challenges is the terrorist threat from groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIL. But this isn't our challenge alone. It's a challenge for the world. Become radicalized. Around the world and here in the United States, given the complexities of the challenge and the nature of the enemy, which is not a traditional army, this work takes time and will require vigilance and resilience and perspective. But I'm confident that just as we have for more than 2 centuries, we will ultimately prevail. And part of what gives me that confidence is the overwhelming response of the world community to the savagery of these terrorists. And so it makes individuals, especially young people who are, and we are not at war with Islam. We are at war with people who have perverted Islam. No religion is responsible for terrorism. People are responsible for violence. They do depend upon the misperception around the world that they speak in some fashion for people of the Muslim faith, that Islam is somehow inherently violent, that there is some sort of clash of civilizations. Of course, the terrorists do not speak for over 1 billion Muslims who reject their hateful ideology. They no more represent Islam than any madman who kills innocents in the name of God represents Christianity or Judaism or Buddhism or Hinduism. No religion is responsible for terrorism. People are responsible for violence and terrorism. Now, the second challenge is we do have to address we've got to discredit these ideologies. We have to tackle them head on. And we can't shy away from these discussions. And too often, folks are understandably sensitive about addressing some of these root issues. But we have to talk about them honestly and clearly. Seeds of extremism and violence. It makes those communities more vulnerable to the high-quality videos, the online magazines, the use of social media, terrorist Twitter accounts. It's all designed to target today's young people online in cyberspace. And by the way, the older people here, as wise and respected as you may be, your stuff is often boring compared to what they're doing. You're not connected, and as a consequence, you are not connecting.
Coming up next, Libya's foreign minister asked the UN to lift an arms embargo so the country can fight ISIS. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching Future Television in English. Amid strains in the U.S.-Israeli relationship over negotiations to reach a landmark nuclear agreement with Iran, the White House spokesman Josh Earnest rejected suggestions Israel was being frozen out. The White House press secretary said that some of the things that Israelis have said in characterizing his negotiating position have not been accurate.
We've also been very clear about the fact that the United States is not going to be in a position of negotiating this agreement in public. And particularly when we see that there is a continued practice of cherry-picking specific pieces of information and using them out of context to distort the negotiating position of the United States. I think it is fair to say that the United States is mindful of the need to not negotiate in public and ensure that information that's discussed at the negotiating table is not taken out of context and publicized in a way that distorts the negotiating position of the United States and our allies. And you think that distortion and cherry-picking has been done by the Israelis? Well, there's no question that some of the things that the Israelis have said in characterizing our negotiating position have not been accurate. There's no question about that.
I just have 2 items for all of you. At the top, we can assure the Israelis that their security interests, that the security of Israel remains a top priority of the United States, and we take every step in order to ensure that, including working on a deal to prevent Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon. I spoke with Foreign Minister Lavrov this morning. He pressed Foreign Minister Lavrov to stop Russian and separatist attacks. We remain gravely concerned by reports that Russia-backed separatists continue to attack Debaltseve and are violating the ceasefire in numerous other locations in Donetsk and Luhansk. The government of Ukraine also reports that some of its forces were fired upon even as they conducted an orderly withdrawal from Debaltseve. There are some areas where we have seen some action, like a reduction in violence, pullback of weapons. We've seen some reports of that. We believe that we need to give it some time to continue to have the agreement implemented. Obviously, there are some violations, and is it perfect? No, but we don't think the alternative or the right option is to take steps that would hurt the implementation of the agreement.
Libya's foreign minister is asking the United Nations Security Council to lift an arms embargo so the country can fight the growing threat of the Islamic State group. Foreign Minister Mohammed Al-Dairi spoke to an emergency session of the council amid regional alarm after ISIS posted a video of the beheadings of 21 Egyptian Coptic Christians in Libya. He stressed that Libya is not asking for international intervention, although his country has asked neighboring Egypt to support the Libyan army. In addition, Egyptian Foreign Minister Sameh Shukri said the international community must help the Libyan government extend its authority throughout the country divided by rival militias. Two rival governments and parliaments, each backed by different militias, rule in the North African country's eastern and western regions. And it's almost here. This Sunday, actor Neil Patrick Harris will earn his O on the road to the coveted so-called EGOT as he inches closer to hosting all four of what are widely considered the most prestigious award shows of the year. He's already got the Tonys and the Emmys under his belt. Now, the Oscars.
Hi there, I'm Neil Patrick Harris. Join me as I host the Oscars. It's looking like it's going to be an amazing show. Anything can happen. Anything.
Neil Patrick Harris hosts The Oscars, live Sunday, February 22nd on ABC.
This holiday season, give your family a gift they'll never forget. Instead of traditional presents, give them the gift of simply telling them to watch me host the Oscars.
Neil Patrick Harris hosts The Oscars, live Sunday, February 22nd on ABC.
It's that time of year when we start thinking about New Year's resolutions. The top three being eat less, exercise more, and watch me host the Oscars.
Neil Patrick Harris hosts The Oscars, Sunday, February 22nd on ABC.
Let's be realistic. You're not going to eat less.
This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our top stories. Free Patriotic Movement leader MP Michel Aoun holds talks with future movement chief, former Prime Minister Saad Hariri at the Center House in the first public meeting between the two leaders in 5 years. An activist group says rebels in Syria captured 32 soldiers and pro-government gunmen near the northern city of Aleppo, where fighting is raging on as the two sides try to expand territory control. And the U.S. president calls on Muslims around the world to fight the misconception that groups like ISIS speak for them. This wraps up our headlines today. Join us again tomorrow for what's making news here and around the world. Good evening.